Hey, GameSpot peeps, it's me, Kevin VanOrd, and I am sitting next to Mr. Blum. Jeremy Blum, you are here to show us Insurgency, which is your awesome tactical shooter that's now in early access on Steam.
That's correct. And
before we do that, why don't you tell people who you are, what you've done, why people should care about Insurgency?
Sure. So I'm the founder and game director at New World Interactive, working on Insurgency. Before this project, I was the project lead on Insurgency Mod, which some of you guys might have heard of. It was released back in 2007, and subsequently won the Mod of the Year award, actually, back then. And before that, I was actually the original creator of Red Orchestra, originally, when I was pretty young. Yeah.
Well, why don't we jump right into the game, and we can show people exactly what to expect with Insurgency.
Yeah.
Sounds great to me.
Happy to demonstrate.
So now you're right here on the map, and where is this map located? What's this gun you've got? Can you load yourself out? All this stuff. Answer all the basics for me when it comes to an online shooter.
Sure. So we have like a class system. And it's actually based on a squad system. So you choose your squad that you want to be in, and then based on what squad you're in, you pick a class, and that class determines what weapons you have access to. You get to upgrade your weapons, pick different equipment, different upgrades, all kinds of stuff. I'll demonstrate the selection. That's a teammate. Selection system next time I respawn. However, this map takes place in Somalia. It's called Market. And this game mode we're playing is called Skirmish. It's kind of our original, I would want to say like our truly original game mode in this game.
How does it work?
So basically there's 5 points throughout the map. It's kind of like a day of defeat in terms of like the size of the map and like how the objectives are spaced between each other. Mm-hmm. A and E though, like the objectives that are closest to your team are actually weapons caches though, instead of territorial objectives. So the way that works is if you destroy your enemy's weapons cache, it depletes their reinforcements faster as a result. So there's kind of an element of territorial control mixed with an element of sabotage. So one thing I might want to do is make sure that I protect my weapons cache. Another thing I might want to do is run over to the other end of the map. This one's mine right here. But another thing I might want to do is run to the other end of the map with my C4 that I have and try and destroy their cache. I think I got him.
Now, if you have any questions for Jeremy, I am looking at the chat on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/GameSpot. So if you have any questions that you want me to ask Jeremy, let me know. I'll be happy to toss them his way, and we'll see where it all goes. Now, Jeremy, you're saying, the game is in early access. If people wanted to get into early access right now, how would they go about doing that?
Well, right now the game is available on Steam for $19.99. So all they have to do is search for us on Steam, Insurgency, and purchase the game, and then they pretty much just get access from there. They could, if they have feedback, they can post on our forums, or however they want to get in touch with us. We definitely are very involved. We do play with the dev sessions, which I don't know if a lot of developers do, where we actually play with people and communicate with them in the game and see how they feel about new updates and whatnot. So that's one of the things that we're doing as early access developers to improve our game as much as we can as we proceed towards full release.
How soon do you think that's going to be? Or do you have a time frame in mind, or is it just going to be when it's done, it's done?
Well, I think it's sort of one of those things, like since we're independent and realistically we could just spend forever working on this game. It's going to be more of a soft release than a hard release, in the sense that we're going to keep working on the game even after the quote-unquote full release, in the form of DLC, potentially sequels. We kind of see this as a platform that we've built. It's a very unique, we feel, experience, and we want to just keep building upon it even after release. But we are shooting for hopefully early next year for a full release of the game. Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm afraid the round is over. I'm afraid that you lost.
So we got some new supply to use,
which is good.
Get a holographic sight now. And I'm going to try and, I got my C4 here, so I'm going to try and actually sabotage. I'm going to go for their weapons cache, which is E. If you look at the overhead map, it's over here. And maybe some of my guys might want to join me for this mission.
So Jeremy, Funk Metal has a question for you.
Sure.
And it's not just about how funky metal is, but it's actually about adding about attachments and items in the game. Are you going to be working on adding more detailed descriptions for example, how much body armor can tank and so on and so forth?
Absolutely. So right now we have you can see it right here. It's a very simple kit menu. This is actually, I would consider this beta. This isn't what's going to be in the full release.
Right. We're
actually redoing this kit selection. So basically it's going to function the same way where you get to, pick which weapon you want to use, upgrade, whatever upgrades you want for it, armor, and then the chest rig, that's the amount of ammo and grenades you can carry. So you'll still be able to customize all this stuff, but it's gonna be a lot more informational and also a lot more graphically. It'll look a lot better graphically and more polished than it currently does. But it'll function pretty much the same. So yeah, we're definitely, that's one of the things that is not in the game right now that we intend to have in for full release.
So Jeremy, going outside of Insurgency a little bit, I'm kind of curious what you think about, because you talked about, you're not doing a big arcade-style popular shooter that people can get into. You do want people to be thoughtful and tactical in your game. Do you think that there's a resurgence in games that are doing just that with the popularity of games, not just like Red Orchestra, but with stuff like Arma, or even with something like the return of Operation Flashpoint a couple years ago and things like that? Do you think there's a need that is now, that your game's going to be part of being able to meet that, or is it going to continue to be niche?
I do think there's a need. I think when you sort of track, what people are saying about FPS games in general all over the internet, a lot of people want more realistic shooters, and you have the Armas and you have the Red Orchestras, and you have the takedowns and the Rainbow Sixes, but I don't think there's really one out there that satisfies the scale the way that we're doing this with like the more intense mid-scale type maps with the more personal interaction between players, and also we're not 100% focused on realism. We do consider ourselves a relatively realistic game, but we don't consider this a real quote-unquote realism game. We don't want to fall into that trap of needing to cater to that all the time. We feel like the weapon mechanics in this game, for instance, are very realistic. A bunch of us having used firearms before, that was very important to us, that we made the weapons feel and behave realistically. Weapon damage is very realistic, for instance. However, it's important, ultimately, this is a game to us. This isn't a simulation to us. So you're not going to find an Arma in this game. I think this game can be considered kind of like a Dave Defeat type of game with a lot of realism elements that you might find in an Arma or a Red Orchestra. I think that's sort of the pace of the game and the way the game feels when you play it.
You have some really, this is the first I'd seen anybody looking down a scope like this. You've got a really interesting visual thing happening when you look down the scope that actually looks like what might happen to you visually when you look down a scope.
Yeah, it's our 3D. It's a 3D scope, so it's actually rendering a zoom on the inside of the scope, but not on your periphery, which is obviously not a lot of games do that. It does have a little bit of a performance thing to go along with it because it's actually rendering twice as a result. Pretty much there is a setting though in the game that people can lower that the quality of their 3D scope if their FPS is experiencing some downfall because of it. But it really does help make the optics in the game really feel more real. So.
For those out in the chat, Jeremy is discovering the joys of not only talking while playing a game at the same time, but also talking with his hands while playing with a game at the same time. So,
yeah, it's hard to actually play when I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So we'll play this map one more time, I think, and then maybe we'll switch to VIP, show people VIP Escort,
sure,
which is another very popular mode in this game. Obviously, it's been done in other games, but considering the sort of gritty, intense nature of this game, I think it creates a very cool experience in this game in particular. So hopefully I'll get to...
Oh,
we had bullet penetration in this game. You might have noticed I was trying to shoot through the wall. So it's usually more for higher caliber weapons, though. So
How tricky is it to balance that in a way that keeps people from saying wall hacks, blah blah blah, lols?
I think it's about making sure that it's done right, and the lower caliber weapons don't penetrate. The armor piercing rounds help increase the amount that your weapon penetrates surfaces, things like that. We haven't had too much of an experience with hackers in the game. It has happened at certain times, and I think it would be unrealistic to expect that it'll never happen again. But we do have a very simple vote kick system in the game, so that if anybody is clearly hacking, they can pretty easily be kicked off the server by everyone else. Yeah, getting my ass kicked.
And in terms of server browser and technology, you're actually using Steamworks, right? That's
yeah, we use Steam as our backend. Yeah, we run our own servers. It's a source engine game. So we have the same dedicated server. It all works the same. So if you can run like a CS:GO server, you can run an Insurgency server. This is actually a similar engine as CS:GO. It's kind of a hybrid Portal 2 CS:GO engine that we're using.
So this isn't so much a question as just somebody in the chat saying, just looking at this looks like a cross between CS:GO and Call of Duty 4. Do you think that's an accurate assessment?
No, I don't think so. Maybe upon first impression, based on like the weapons and like the environments, someone might get that impression. But it's really not very much like either of those games, I would say. I would still consider it more of like a Dave Defeat, maybe Rainbow Six hybrid with Arma and Red Orchestra influences in there, if I had to kind of compare it as a mishmash between other games out there.
Right.
So after this round, I'm gonna switch it up. We'll try something else. And eventually I would like to end on co-op, because I think co-op is a really great aspect of this game that didn't exist when we made the mod, but it's something we added in a little later. So I just got slugs, which make the spread a lot smaller on the shotgun. Yeah, see, it's a pretty tight spread. Makes it a little longer range.
So when adding something like co-op to this, how, because in the past when I think of Red Orchestra, when I think of this, I think of a game that's meant to be competitive multiplayer, right? So when you add co-op, what kind of challenges did you run into adding things like AI and things like that, and how did you
it was a lot
around those?
It was a lot of work. We pretty much had to write the bot code from scratch. So that was definitely a significant amount of work involved, getting it up to the point that it was playable and enjoyable. I was personally pretty involved in that, and also deciding that we were even going to do co-op was very important to me. I always felt that it would really add longevity to this game, replayability to this game, and also provide new players a way of getting involved in it without jumping into a competitive game online, which could be a little bit daunting at times, especially in this game. It's a very hardcore FPS. And if you're more of a casual player, or you've never played the game before, you might find yourself running around and dying a lot, unless you've had the opportunity to, for instance, play co-op and sort of learn the controls. And nice, I got
nice. So a few questions coming in, and this is an interesting question because, of course, you're getting things like Blacklight Retribution on the PS4, and you're seeing other things like that come out, or Warframe, for example. Has there ever been any thought to taking this game to consoles? And do you think that that's reasonable to take a game like this to consoles, considering its PC roots and its tactical element?
I think it's reasonable. I think it's something that we've thought about, but it's something that we're just focused on making this first, getting this first thing out on PC and Mac, and then sort of we'll see after that where things go. But it's certainly something that we're considering as a possibility.
Did you ever also, this is just from my own point of view, did you ever consider making it free to play and having microtransactions, or do you think that that's sort of counter to what you're trying to do with Insurgency?
Well, it's tough. That market's really tough because you gotta support it with a lot of content, and a lot of the things people don't realize about free to play games is they actually have a lot of money goes into those games. To be able to support the content aspect of it. So it's really not necessarily the market that we wanted to get into with this game. It is something that we would consider as a possibility further down the line if we, kind of like how TF2 opened it up to free to play like later.
Right.
Maybe that's something that we would do if we want to drastically increase our user base, and if we have, the content and the people to create the content for something like that a little further down the line. But we'll see. It's really not anywhere in the near future that we're going to do that.
How about things like, some people asking about mod support, map editor, things like that? Do you think that there's, obviously this in and of itself is, started as a mod and is based in source, which is highly moddable. Do you think that you could perhaps, release your own set of tools to allow people to make their own Insurgency modifications?
Yeah, we're all about that. I mean, we already have an SDK out where people could develop maps for our game already, and we haven't necessarily decided that we're going to release source code. I don't even know if that's in the realm of possibilities. Like, we would have to talk to Valve. Obviously, it's their engine, and I don't know how frequently they even let licensees release source code. So that's not really necessarily in our plans, but we do have a very extensive scripting system that will allow people to sort of make custom theaters for the game. They can make new characters, new weapons, and kind of create, like if they wanted to make like a World War II, version of Insurgency, for instance. Sure. We would kind of have the tools there for them to do that, just with what we already have planned.
And somebody asking a good question too, sort of outside of firearms, what kind of tools will people have? I don't know exactly what the question asker has in mind, but I'm thinking beyond just C4 and things like, there are no vehicles here, so I don't see any use for, say, an engineer or something like that.
Right.
But how else can you, support the team outside of shooting dudes?
Right. Well, I think smoke is like the main form of the main tool, sort of, for tactical coordination in this game. You see people using smoke like all the time. We are not really focusing too much on other, hardware besides the C4 and the RPGs and the AT4s, like the rocket launchers and stuff like that. This is an infantry-based game. We're not trying to turn this into a vehicle based experience at any point. That's not in our plans. So I mean, anything that enhances an infantry-based experience is something that would be on our radar as something that we would consider putting in. And like I was saying before, with our launch coming up, we see that as more of a soft launch. We do plan on updating the game and adding new content to the game, as we go further down the line. So if someone comes up with a great idea, of some kind of tool that would be useful in this game that's not already in it, we're all ears. We're listening. I'm sorry, I'm sucking for all these people.
This is what happens when we force you to talk at the same time.
It's too bad, because I always watch like videos like that are done like this, and I'm always like, damn it, why can't like somebody that's good play our game and like show people what it's like to do well in our game? And even me, I can't even show people.
But that's the thing. I don't know that it's even fair to say, oh, this is how you fly through our game and look awesome, because I don't. If I play something like this, I expect that I'm going to die a lot. And I expect that it's going to be reasonable to die a lot, because that means then that I have to apply, gray matter, that I have to think about what I'm doing, and there has to be coordination. And, if I watch somebody run through something like this looking all awesome, then I actually question whether it's the kind of experience that I want to have. So I'd say you're doing just fine. It's only a matter of time before somebody said this. Jeremy, you look like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. I know. I get that all the time. I also grew up in like the same neighborhood as him.
Did you seriously?
Or like very nearby, yeah, like 10 minutes away.
That's pretty
when
amazing.
When I lived in Brooklyn, like every bar I went to, like people would always like tell me like, Mark Zuckerberg, and all my friends would always try and tell me like, you gotta tell people that you're Mark Zuckerberg.
I know, I get that all the time too. People confusing me with Mark Zuckerberg. It's really a shame. Or well, it actually used to be Drew Carey.
Oh yeah.
That was the celebrity that people thought I most resembled, apparently. But so somebody's saying, so how about a medic? I assume that there's no medic role.
No, there's not, and it's something we've thought about in the past, but it's just something that it would require a lot of work, and it just doesn't really fit in the game. Insurgency, the mod, it didn't have a medic. We feel like it would change the gameplay a little bit too much from what people expect when they're playing Insurgency. I think a lot of other games have medics. Like Battlefield. I think, does Arma have them? Or yeah, Arma.
Well, yeah, anybody can kind of do anything when it comes to Arma.
Right.
It's pretty much.
Well, a lot of games have that already, and it's just not. It's not what defines the Insurgency experience to us. So this mode, by the way, I didn't really explain it. This is VIP escort. So this guy right here is the VIP, and we're trying to get to either A or B. So the whole team is here, like, trying to protect this guy. And this is a single life mode. So some of our modes are, respawn wave based, but others of them, such as this one, are single life.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get the dude that played the bearded guy from Medal of Honor to come into your game and play the role of VIP.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was a little bit of that Joaquin Phoenix sort of look. People asking about customization, character progression. Obviously, it seems to me at least that everything regarding progression's on a match by match basis.
Well, it is in this right now, but we do have plans for some persistent progression in the game.
Okay.
We don't want to talk about it too much yet. It's kind of one of the things that we're keeping under wraps until we actually put in the game. But it's our goal to get it in by full release, and it's not going to be something that dramatically has an impact on gameplay. That's the reason why we went with the more progression-based, in-game progression-based setup, kind of like a Counter-Strike or something, is because we wanted the players that are skilled at that moment to be the ones that get the advantage, not the people that grind and play 24 hours a day.
Right.
So yeah, we definitely have some persistent ideas in mind that we think will be very rewarding, and we do have achievements, and that's part of the plan as well. Things to keep people playing. Like we recognize that having these persistent elements to the game will keep players coming back, and obviously we want that. So yeah, it's in the works, and there'll be more to come there.
That's got to be something hard to balance, right? Because you don't want to make people feel like we're spending money, so we're going to be immediately better, or we've played a lot, so if you're a newbie, you're just screwed.
Right.
And I've certainly played enough games where I've been mowed down by people that have been playing so long that I leave before I have a chance to begin.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting. Like, you could do something like Call of Duty, where the progression is so entrenched in the in the way the game works that people that have been playing forever are the people that are going to continue to play forever.
Right. Yeah.
But do you think that's hard to find that balance? How do you keep people coming back and feel like they're progressing without making newcomers feel like they're screwed right out of the gate?
Right. I think it's, to me at least, I think it's continuing down the path that we are, which is going down the non-progressive route in terms of the way for it to impact gameplay. Things like the upgrades that you get, the weapons you have access to, those have a dramatic impact on how good you have the potential to be in the game, and those are the things that we don't want to be persistent. However, we do have some ideas of ways to reward players for playing with persistent incentives without necessarily giving them the upper hand.
Does it involve hats?
It does not involve hats, no. Unfortunately, to those of you who would like that.
How many? Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was just going to explain this new game mode that we're playing. So this is called Strike. This is one of our search and destroy game modes. The way it works is there's 3 caches. This is one. That's one over there, and there's one over here that are controlled by one team and defended by that one team, and the other team is trying to destroy all 3 of them. And at the beginning of the round, the other team, which you don't see right now, but they actually, there's 5 suspected sites that the caches could be at, so they don't know which 3 the caches are at. They have to explore. It has a seek and destroy type of element to it, where you have to seek first, discover the caches before you could obviously destroy them. And if you discover one of the question marks and there's not a cache there, it'll show up it'll be removed from everyone's HUD on your team. So it's very clear, where the caches are as they get discovered. So for instance, this is one of the cache sites right here. So their team might be trying to come this way.
Like that
guy. Because, he thinks that there could be a cache there. But we know where the 3 caches are, and basically we need to have the time run out before they destroy any caches. And if they destroy a cache, they get some extra time and they get an extra wave. And that's just sort of how the game mode works. Is it's a reinforcement-based search and destroy type game.
But it's going to be worth, maybe having 1 or 2 of your guys going to one of the potential sites that doesn't actually have a cache at it to mow down the enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe even fool them into thinking maybe there is a keep coming.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can play this mode. It's definitely taken off a bit since we put it out there. For a while, when we were in early access, the only real thing we had in the game was the control points, the territorial, capture points, and really all of our modes were based around that. And only recently have we, like a month or 2 ago, did we add in the weapons caches with the C4, and it's added a whole new element to the game of the element of sabotage, which didn't exist in the game beforehand, and we're excited about that.
So what's the max team size on this? Is it 12v12, 16 versus 16?
It's 16 versus 16. Personally, I enjoy the 12v12 a little bit more. It's a little bit more personal, a little bit less chaotic. But really, it's fun, with few people too, especially depending on the mode. So some, like VIP, for instance, the single life modes are actually a pretty good amount of fun, even like 4-on-4, for instance. Yeah. Sorry,
my heart bled for you just there. I was like, fire first!
Yeah.
So
we actually won there. Yeah.
Oh, good. Underdogs 44 asked about the number of players. He's also curious because, do you think there's a chance that, you could go bigger? Do you think that you could go, a bigger map with a larger number of players and maybe have multiple objectives? I don't know exactly what he has in mind, but I thought maybe something enemy territory like where, you might go a little bit bigger and have multiple objectives where you have to complete before you get to the main objective, or...
Right. Well, probably not. Just from a technical standpoint, we're constantly fighting viz, which is like the term for visibility in Source Engine. It's the way that the maps are optimized, and it's really difficult for us to even do large open maps like this one. This one we would consider to be very open and large. So that's kind of been something that we've always been fighting since the get-go. Is that our community has always wanted these smaller these larger environments, and honestly, like, our maps used to be much smaller, and as part of the community's push and desire for us to expand the maps in the game, we've kind of done so and opened up all new areas that didn't exist before.
Right.
So I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but we have this feature in the game where suppression, if you're being suppressed, your sway actually increases quite a bit. So it's just one of those things that, like suppressive fire, for instance, in this game is actually pretty effective. It'll... Oh crap, I forgot I'm using a burst weapon.
Excuses. But I feel it makes me feel a lot better when I then play something for everybody to watch, when I can say, oh, but sometimes the guy that made the game comes in and is worse than I am.
Yeah.
But I was kind of curious about the size. So, you mentioned that it's sort of something that you're fighting with the engine. Do you think that eventually, because obviously Source isn't going to be around forever, although it's been around for a damn long time, it seems.
Right.
Eventually, Valve's going to move on, and that means that other people are going to have to move on as well. Do you think that new engines, new technology, do you get excited considering what you might be able to pull off if only you had a little bit more horsepower to work with, or only if you had a more customizable engine to work with, and so forth?
Yes and no. Personally, I'm very much focused on raw gameplay, and I don't think that it's a secret that this engine has produced some games that play amazingly well. So that's something that I've never felt at a disadvantage using this engine to make a fun game. We have been slightly disadvantaged, with in terms of how far we can push it, the environments and in terms of scale, especially. But we've been able to design the game around the scale of this engine. So even though it might be appealing for us to, for instance, port this game to CryEngine or even Source 2, or maybe that could happen further down the line if it's easy to port to. But in terms of us porting to an all new engine, that's very unlikely because of all the work that's gone into this platform on this one. So but I don't feel disadvantaged by this engine. We make the most that we can out of it. It's always going to look a little bit like a Source game. There's really not much that we could do about that. However, I think for a Source game, we've got the cascaded shadow maps from CS:GO. We've got a bunch of the newer Source stuff in this game, and with that, I think we even have a lot of potential to make it look good. And hopefully you guys see that a bit in our maps that they do look pretty good, I think, for a Source game. And I can't get a kill. I'm 0-5.
0-5.
You might as well play.
No, nobody wants to see that.
At least I can kind of show people the game.
Well, that's true. Well,
despite dying all the time.
It really is hard, especially because I know you like talking with your hands. And wow, I really do like that scope. That really freaks me out every time he does that.
What, the scope?
Yeah. Wow.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, so maybe after this round we could switch over to some co-op.
That sounds great.
So I could show you and your audience, obviously, the way the co-op works in the game. Co-op is something that I've personally put a lot of time and energy into, and I think it's starting to turn out really nicely. And there's a lot of potential with where it could go. Maybe not necessarily for full release, but certainly for DLC and potential sequels down the line. I think it's exciting.
So how much backstory do you guys have for the conflict? Because obviously when I come to something like this, I'm not actually really expecting a whole lot in terms of story or in terms of context. It's just these dudes versus those dudes.
Right.
But what do you have an idea of what the major conflict is here and what it means and why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So I guess our game's a little different in the sense that it's not about. I'm trying to kill that guy. I think I got him. It's not about typical, Western forces versus Eastern force or Western forces versus, insurgents, whatever. We were using the term security, which I guess is used loosely because some of the characters look like they could be Marines and some of them look like they can be private military contractors. But, the idea of the game is insurgency. If you look up the definition of insurgency or insurrection, in a dictionary, it's a rise revolt against an occupier or security. Basically, it's more of a revolution than it is an actual invasion, of a country. So we're trying to sort of go with that, basically, that the insurgents are rising up against the people that are in control of the country at the time, and the people that they hire to keep the country in order, kind of. So if we ever did some more story elements to the game, through co-op, through training. Whatever it might be, it's probably going to have a little bit more of a private military contractor feel to it to make us stand out, I think, because I don't think any games have really jumped on that, and it is something that's real. It's something that's really happening out there. We have private military contractors fighting wars, and it's a very controversial thing, I think. And maybe if we ever do have kind of a campaign or some kind of story element to this game, it would be telling a story in that sense through the lens of private military contractors. I think that would be interesting.
So what you're saying is I can get started on my Insurgency fan fiction anytime, really?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already underway,
okay.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. And if somebody out there wants to, once they get a hold of your tools, it sounds like they should maybe make a Metal Gear Solid type of mod if you're going to have PMCs being a big thing, then just there, now.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, one of the first things that happened in Arma 3 when the alpha came out was somebody created for Metal Gear Solid 1, they created the whole opening bit of Metal Gear Solid 1. So It's only a matter of time. I'm not saying it was good. I'm not saying you should go out and play it. I'm not saying that I really had fun with it. And I'm not saying that the AI was good at all.
Right.
But in fact, man, morons fill the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean,
in Arma 3. But
one thing you'll see with our co-op is that the AI is they're not like the most brilliant thing in the world either. But they're smart enough, and the way I kind of designed this was from the perspective of a former Rainbow Six player growing up. I used to play like the Rainbow Six, like Rogue Spear was like my jam when I was a kid. I used to play that game a lot, and they had the terrorist hunt, where you go around and you would just like hunt down. It was very simple, they would talk to each other, you'd hunt them down one by one and ambush them. And that's the original actual thing that we did with this game, was a simple terrorist hunt type scenario.
Right.
And it just took off. Like, our community really loved it, and it gave them something new to play. So basically the idea is they're kind of hanging around patrolling and stuff, and then once you start attacking them, they start to come at you and investigate, and next thing you know, you got like 10 insurgents.
Do you think that the style of Insurgency would support something like a horde mode?
Oh, we already have a horde mode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called Outpost.
Never mind.
It's actually surprisingly not a lot of people are playing it. I think it still has a little bit of work that we need to put into it to make it really enjoyable. But it has a lot of potential, I think, because I've always enjoyed those type of scenarios myself. It's just, you can just try and last as long as you can, and that's the way it works too. Is there's no way, you don't never win. It just keeps going.
Right.
They just keep getting harder and harder, more numerous and more numerous. I'm the only person on here right now. Maybe I'll join a co-op server that actually has people.
That is
like this one.
A potential plus there.
Yes. I was hoping people would just like follow me in, but that didn't happen because I didn't tell anyone.
People don't follow Mark Zuckerberg everywhere, Jeremy.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
You would think,
I know. You got to use the similarity to your benefit, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really funny, that comparison. I get it all the time, and obviously not only do we like live near each other, but like I'm also a programmer, like he's a programmer, and it's very all the similarities are kind of weird,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to. Oh man, it disappeared. Never mind. I like that's an effect that is always very effective for me. The flying papers and things like that. Like
the atmospheric.
I'm always a sucker for that.
We're trying to even increase it more. Like in terms of like the immersion type features in the game, like we definitely want to have a lot more client-side physics and stuff like that, like stuff rolling, like bottles rolling around, and like a little more interaction in the environments so they're a little less static. That's something we're working on as well as we polish up the game.
Is there anything that you wanted to be able to do that the engine just wouldn't let you do?
That's a good question. I think like the more open environments is like the main thing, which was what we were talking about before. I think that's the main thing that Source is just like no to. But generally not really, because it's still a very flexible engine. You can do a lot with it if you wanted to. I think maybe things like full body awareness and like the type of system that like Battlefield has, where what you see in first person is also what you see in third person, stuff like that would be extremely difficult to do on Source Engine, and that's something that we would be fighting if we tried to do, for sure. So this mode, by the way, is called Checkpoint. It's where you and your teammates are kind of going point by point. Yeah, you probably saw my screen get all blurry. Okay, this is a weapons cache objective. Takes 2 frags, so I'm gonna have to throw one more.
Done.
Oh,
no.
Damn it. You know what happened? It wasn't a direct hit. It needs to be 2 direct hits.
What were you thinking?
Maybe this guy's got a frag, maybe not. I need to run back to the spawn area and grab one.
See, now this is something to take to heart. Somebody, Toshiyuki Fujimori, saying, I will probably buy this if it is for consoles.
Yeah.
So there you go. People want to buy your game, but they're PCs are too elite for them.
Well, like I said, it's something that we don't necessarily have in our plans, but it's something that we're definitely considering. So we'll see what happens there. And the Steam box too definitely excites us. So, or the Steam machine or whatever Valve's calling it now.
Right. Yeah, I guess they call it Steam machine, but then I guess manufacturers can call their machine whatever they really want, right? I mean, I would think that they can call it whatever they want.
Who knows what they're going to end up calling it, but I'm excited about that one. I think that be potentially disruptive to the console industry, which I think would be a good thing. And obviously our game would probably port to it pretty well because it's a Source game, and they'll probably help us out with that.
Well, something tells me that anything made on Source would probably be easier to port than
a lot of
other things.
It's a Linux-based operating system, and they haven't released CS:GO on Linux, I don't think, but if they eventually do that, we'll be able to hop on that.
When you got CS 1.6, who needs? Right. Sorry, I'm being all hardcore. Yeah, Dan is giving me the 2-minute countdown, which means that I have now 2 minutes.
All right, better go on a rampage
to try to wrap this one up. So, first of all, Jeremy, if people want to play Insurgency, which of course they do because now they've watched you play it and they think Insurgency is great, right? So if you want to play Insurgency, you go and you drop $19.99 on it, right?
Yep.
You go into Steam and you drop $19.99. It's early access, so
there's some bugs.
Aw, come on.
It's just always good to remind people what early access is. This is our effort to work with the community and make this game better before we, make it, a real deal type experience.
Right. But $19.99 gets them the ability to play now, obviously,
yep.
And then they get to continue to play.
Yep. And they also get access to free DLC and updates after the game launches. It's a one-time deal. You spend that money and you're in forever. So, yeah.
So you can only play with aim assists. What? I don't know if that's a joke or not.
With aim assists?
Yeah.
There is no aim assist.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure.
Well, there would probably have to be if we were ever on the console.
Right.
Oops, I almost killed him. Is anyone watching me? Yeah, they're watching me.
Oh yeah, they're watching you.
All right, cool. I wasn't sure.
They're watching you. They see what's going on. You're trying to give them as much action as you can.
I'm finally getting kills.
Like the 45 seconds that we've got left.
Right. Exactly.
And do you have any idea when you think the full launch / soft launch, I guess we'll call it, of the game comes? When you officially say, okay, it doesn't have a beta tag anymore.
Well, we're targeting early next year. We don't have an exact date.
Early next year.
Yes.
2014 it is.
That's correct. Yes. So it's coming soon. We're definitely crunching over here. Trying to get this game ready for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to call you Mark. I'll call you by your real name, Jeremy. Thank you for coming by and showing us Insurgency. You're kind of doing your whirlwind tour right now. And is there anything else you think people should know before we say goodbye to everybody out there in the GameSpot audience?
Not really. Just give the game a try and let us know what you think, and we're gonna keep improving it, and we look forward to the future.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in.